Your Creative Force by Avianne is currently available on Global Voice Radio.
Talent is a flame. Genius is a fire. Broadcasting from the San Francisco Bay Area, the all-new, all-hit show on creativity. Hosted by international award-winning artist and entrepreneur, Avianne. You're listening to Your Creative Force. And now here's your host, Avianne.
This is Avianne coming to you from the beautiful San Francisco Bay Area in California, the USA. And we are going to jump in with both feet today with our show theme for today being successful leaders. I cannot stress to you guys how important successful leadership is. And as someone who has both been on the receiving end of excellent leadership and horrible leadership, and someone that has to still learn how to be a great leader to my team and how to provide good leadership in building my own business and my own dreams, I can tell you that it is absolutely a critical part, an absolute integral part of building a business as an entrepreneur on any front. If the leadership doesn't work, nothing else in the business will really work well. That is also why up until today, which is episode 19 of Your Creative Force, like I said, our theme being for today, successful leaders, up until now, most of our shows have been about things like boundaries and integrity, things like being able to handle the stress, knowing what kind of entrepreneur you are, right? We've spent a lot of time going through topics and themes like that. And the reason that I have put so much emphasis on those things, it is because those things are part of what makes a fantastic leader, if you really think about it. A lot of people want the title of leader, or they want the role of the leader without really understanding always what it really means to be a leader. So we are going to delve into some of that today. And that being said, when it comes down to it, everything in any organization or even the smallest of projects rises and falls with the quality of the leadership. I want you to think about that. Every detail of the business. The leadership is ultimately where the buck stops, right? If there is something wrong in an organization, it is on the leadership to deal with it, to fix it, to transform it, to improve it, or to shut it down if that's what it takes, right? The employees, yes, they can make mistakes. The clients, yes, they can sometimes give you gray hair. But in the end, the buck stops with the leadership. If anything in my organization goes terribly wrong or just terribly crazy, I can't really blame my employees for that and just say, oh, well, they need to deal with it, right? I need to step in. I need to be the leader. I need to be the person in the arena, fighting for my people, fighting for my business, stepping in, stepping up. That's what leadership is about. And being a leader, especially if you don't have a lot of experience with being a leader, or you haven't yourself in your life throughout your childhood and beyond been exposed to really great leaders, right? Some of us are fortunate because we had great coaches or great teachers that taught us a lot about leadership, or we had parents that really taught us about that. But some of us might not have had that example. And if you are someone who didn't have that example, it can be frightening sometimes if you suddenly find yourself having to be a leader. You see, everyone always wants to be the cool gladiator in the arena, or the leader of the pack, or the alpha female, or the head of the team, right? Or the captain or the coach, until they realize what it really means. It is tough to be a leader. If you want to be a good leader, you're going to have to be able to make some tough calls sometimes. I can give you so many examples from my own business, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. So it doesn't matter how great a product or a service is or how great the team is, bad leadership can quickly destroy what is being built. It takes a long time to build an organization. It takes a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. Anyone who's ever built anything can tell you that. whether it be the mom and pop shop around the corner, or it would be someone like Bill Gates who built Microsoft, right? It doesn't matter what size the business is or what kind of entrepreneur you are. Building what you're building is taking a lot from you. It is a lot of work to build a business. It is a lot of work to actually realize your dreams and to take what is inside your creative force, take those treasures and really, really take those to the ultimate level, right? That's a process. That takes a lot. And if you're not careful and if you don't mind your leadership, either leaders you deploy within your organization or yourself as a leader, you will be surprised how quickly a bad leader can destroy your organization. They can very quickly break down a lot of what you've built for many years, right? So leadership is absolutely important. Every role in a business is important, but the leadership is crucial because everything rises and falls with the leadership, right? The project can be spectacular, the team can be flawless, and the vision impressive, but if the leadership is dysfunctional, unprofessional, or inadequate, the organization will be doomed to fail either in the short run or the long run. The leadership, just like the culture of the business, as we discussed in a previous episode, form a significant part of the foundations of a strong and healthy, sustainable organization. We talked about it in our previous episode and before that even, about having a healthy culture, right? Having a healthy organization, making sure that things like integrity and things like knowing what you really want to do, your vision is really followed, right? And your integrity really matters. So we talked about these things in previous episodes. Leadership is the backbone of whatever we build as small business owners or entrepreneurs. And we will be looking at the values, traits, and significance of successful leaders in episode 19 of Your Creative Force today with me. Studies have shown that successful leaders have certain traits in common, and these are the traits that can mean the difference between a successful business for the long haul or a progressive fracturing of what is being built. And it is important for us to understand this. And I want to point something out. This goes way beyond a type of personality, okay? I can tell you from my experience, I've been involved in entrepreneurship for the last 20 years in many different aspects of entrepreneurship, and I can tell you that it very seldom has anything, if at all, ever, anything to do with personality type. I have seen introverts being fantastic leaders, and I have seen introverts being horrible leaders. I have seen extroverts being great leaders, and I have seen extroverts absolutely ripping their organization apart because they're just not wise, right? Remember, wisdom is also something we discussed in one of our previous episodes. So this is kind of, for me today, a culmination of certain things that we have discussed before, but putting it for you guys into the context of great leadership, right? And that's the thing. I don't think anyone ever sets out building an organization thinking, I'm going to just be a sucky leader, right? We want to be good leaders because we know instinctively, I think anyone who has the sense of building a business realizes on some kind of level that they want to be a good leader, right? The thing is just that we are human. Leaders are human, just like anyone else. And we have shortcomings. We have strengths and we have weaknesses. We have great things that we are just naturally flowing in, and we have other things that we need to learn. I can tell you that I had to learn a lot of stuff to be able to lead my organization. And I don't even always feel like I'm a natural leader. Sometimes I feel like I almost have to force myself to step out of my comfort zone or maybe explore a trait, even a personality trait that may not be authentically my own, so that I can get perspective, so that I can be objective, so that I cannot lead with my emotions, right? I would say that would be something I have to watch out for. I am such a passionate, such an intense human being that sometimes my emotions can really feel very strong to me. And I have to take a step back and always allow my reason to lead me, because if I get led by my emotions, just like we've discussed in previous episodes, emotions are not good masters. You cannot let your emotions be your master. Emotions are supposed to be your servant when it comes to your business. So for me, that would be a good example. I know already one of my weaknesses as a leader, if I don't manage it, is that I could make decisions out of my emotions, which will not necessarily be the best business decision. So I know that I have to deliberately think hard and think with a clear head. So often when I have to make decisions, I try to buy myself a little bit of time, because I know that if I take my time to make certain decisions, chances are that I will make a better decision. I'm not just going to make decisions for my business off the fly of my pants. I will consult with my mentors, with a coach. I will consult with the board of my art academy before I just jump in and make choices that can affect the whole business and may not be the best option, right? So I think the wisdom part really plays a huge role. Okay, so in part one of our show, we're going to start by looking at the powerful traits, values, and qualities of successful leaders. And I want to start by pointing out the number one value I think a leader needs, right? You do need integrity. Personally, I feel that integrity is the most important value for a leader to have. And integrity, here is the thing. Nobody can teach you to have integrity. You have to bring integrity already. You cannot learn integrity on the job, because the choices you are going to make are all going to depend on your integrity. So your character, your ability to know the difference between right and wrong, good and bad for your business, your ability to stand with integrity, firm in the person you are, in the values you have for your business, that is going to be critical. Values like we do things above board, we obey the law, we come in on time. Those things, the culture, the rules, the regulations, the methods, the processes, the values, they all go together, right? But those rise and fall with your integrity as the person who spearheads all of that, right? And that is such a huge part of why you will be either successful or unsuccessful as a leader. And people really underestimate it. They're like, yes, we hear it all the time. Good character. I've heard it 1,000 times. But you really need to stop and think about that, because good character cannot be bought. It doesn't matter how much money someone has. You can't buy good character, right? You either have it or you don't have it. And what I did was, when I was really young, which is advice I would give any young person who plans to eventually be in the leadership of their own organization or in any organization, would be place yourself under great leaders. One of the smartest things I've ever done in my life as a business person, I can tell you this was one of the smartest things I've ever done, is I placed myself under great mentors and great leaders, and I made sure I sucked everything up from them like a little sponge. I learned from these people. I watched closely. I watched their mistakes. I watched their successes, and I decided based upon that how I would build my own character, my own integrity, my own values, my own culture into my own business. And that is what I have always done. And sometimes that has led me to places where I had to make very tough decisions. In South Africa long ago, it meant breaking up with a business partner because this person was simply not sharing my values, and it was on a level where it would have harmed my reputation. It would have harmed the business, and I had to let them go. And fortunately, they had the sense of eventually seeing it that way. In the beginning, it was hard because they were massively offended at me. So these are things that are always going to come into play for you, and you need to understand that, okay? It's never going to change. And here's the other thing that I just quickly want to speak into with you guys. I mentioned this at the beginning of our show. Is the fact that people often want to be the team captain, the coach, the leader, the business manager, the owner of the business. And you know what? I'm here to tell you that's all great. It's wonderful if you have ambitions like that. But I want you to take a step back and really listen to today's show and really listen to all 18, the other episodes we have done on your creative force so far. Because here's the deal with that. It may not be exactly what you think. If you think being the boss or the owner of a business means that you can sit in a limousine and sip champagne all day and chill while other people make you money, you have a very wrong and skewed idea about what it means to lead a business or build a business. If you are a good leader, you are going to care about what you do. And if you are a good leader, on some level, in some way, shape, or form, you are always going to be involved in your business. Okay? Your role will change. Your role will evolve. I can already tell you that as I am evolving now from level 2 to level 3 in some aspects of my business, it's a process, right? Evolving for me. And this is something we did in a previous episode when we discussed truly being an entrepreneur. I think it was episode 13 where we were talking about truly being an entrepreneur, what it means and the different levels of entrepreneurship. And in that episode, I was honest with you guys. I said, I'm not a level 4 entrepreneur and I don't think I may ever be one. And I'm fine with that. I am kind of a level 1 and 2 entrepreneur, and you need to go listen to that episode. Go look it up. Episode 13, I believe it was. And it was Truly Being an Entrepreneur was the title of that episode. Go look it up. It's a wonderful episode for you to listen to if you're interested in that kind of topic. But for me, my entrepreneurial journey requires certain qualities of me, and it requires me to evolve. And what I was trying to say before, sorry, I digressed a bit, but what I was saying before was, in the beginning of my business, when I was on level 1 and level 2, I was the only one working on the business, right? So I had to do everything myself. And then as I became a level 2 entrepreneur, I started handing off some aspects of the business. I don't do my own web design. I don't do my own marketing in many ways. I have someone else who is fantastic who's doing that for me, right? So your role will change. And right now my role is changing again. I just employed 2 teachers to work for me on a contract basis because I simply cannot teach all my classes anymore myself, right? If I teach all my classes myself, I won't have time to work on any other aspects of the business. So you will eventually take steps back in your business and delegate things and hand things over to other people. That's normal. But I can tell you, I can sit here and I can tell you, I know that probably for the rest of my life, in some way, shape, or form, even if it's just as a board member or just in an overseeing capacity, I am always going to want to work on my business and in my business a little bit because I need to know what's going on with with my business, right? You want to know. You can't just turn a blind eye, climb in your limousine and sip champagne, right? It would be great if that's reality. And I want to issue a warning to you. See, I see this all the time on social media, and it really bugs me. And I'm going to tell you why it bugs me, and I'm going to tell you what it is I'm seeing. I see a lot of these ads or these posts or these entrepreneurial people, and they're usually involved in some kind of multi-level marketing endeavor, like an organization that is involved in multi-level marketing, or they are involved in cryptocurrency, or they're involved in internet sales of some kind, or sometimes they also claim to be authors who write, right, or speakers. And in those industries, even in the coaching industry, I see a dangerous trend where people keep posting pictures and information about themselves, basically traveling and sitting on the beach, and their business is just naturally growing and naturally making money for them, and they don't have to do anything in the business. I can tell you, I've been around long enough, and I know enough industries well enough, and I know enough people in enough industries well enough to tell you that is not really reality for the most part. You may be very fortunate that you actually just hit a gold mine, right? And things just kind of seem to go from there, and you don't have to think or work too hard to get it done. But I can tell you that's not the norm. And if you go into entrepreneurship or business of any kind, I don't care if it's entrepreneurship or multi-level marketing or sales or whatever it is you're going to, if you go into that thinking that you are just going to sit back and sip cocktails while the business just grows itself, you're probably in for a rude awakening. It is a lot of work, and it's going to require a lot of integrity, a lot of character, and a lot of stepping into the arena and fighting for what you want from you. If you're not willing to do that, if you think you can just throw money at it and sit back and all your money is just suddenly going to have millions of dollars in babies, I am sad for you, because I know then that is not usually how it happens. Can it happen? Sure. Sometimes it happens for people. Now and then someone comes up with a fantastic invention or a fantastic business model, and for the right people in the right place at the right time, if they're lucky enough and they are well resourced and they have a fantastic network, boom, it can work and it can take off and explode, and that does happen. But that happens once in thousands of opportunities. That is not the norm. And it also depends on the kind of industry you're at, the kind of point you're at in your business, okay? If you're basically just selling something on behalf of another entrepreneur, it may be easier for you to just sit back and make money. But if you're someone authentically starting your own thing from scratch, you're going to work your tailbone off. I am just letting you know. But that is why your integrity is such an important value for you in your business. You can absolutely not do without it, right? Talking about the traits, values, and qualities of successful leaders. See, the qualities, the values, and the traits, they all go together. They're kind of wrapped into one thing. And that one thing centers around your character. They center around your integrity. So before we move on to look at the traits in themselves, I just wanted to make sure that I really am clear with you guys. Don't think that those pictures and those posts that make it look like this is easy and a walk in a park and you're just going to sit back and the dollars are going to roll in. Not true. Not happening for 99% of people out there, because that's just not how the real world works, right? You're going to need people skills. You're going to need to make tough calls. You're going to have to actually be an actual leader stepping into the arena to make things work, right? So we're going to start by looking at an article, and we're going to go off this article and we're going to expand upon it, which I came across, and I just thought it was so fantastic because I found it so well researched and so clear and so articulate that I wanted to share it with you guys today. And this article was written by someone named Deep Patel. He's a contributor for Forbes magazine, and Deep Patel is a serial entrepreneur, marketer, and the author of A Paperboy's Fable, The 11 Principles of Success. So do go look up Deep Patel, the Forbes contributor, where I actually found this amazing article. And the article he wrote is called 11 Powerful Traits of Successful Leaders. And we're going to delve a little deeper into it. We'll start this off in part 1 and then continue with this in part 2 and part 3 of our show today. And we're going to delve into this topic with Deep Patel. So that all being said, I'm going to dive right in. I hope you guys are with me. You're awake, you had your coffee, you're ready to roll, right? I put a lot of content in my shows. There is so much juice in every show for you guys because I want to make it worth your while to listen to the show. I'm not just going to give you the fluff, right? This is not the show for you if you want some cotton candy with sprinkles on the side. This is a show with substance. We go deep and we go long and we go hard, right? We want great stuff. We want to get to the treasures. We want to know all the things about this creative force that we're dealing with. Your traits as a leader, by the way, is absolutely directly stemming from and tied to your creative force. Okay, so let's start with what Deep Patel wrote. He wrote, successful leaders are the power and intellect behind their organizations. They are the visionaries charged with steering their brand around pitfalls. They must know when to seize opportunities and how to rally employees to work hard toward their company's goals. And I'm just going to stop here and tell you quickly what he wrote here is so important. And even if you don't have employees, you start by steering yourself, right? If you cannot steer yourself effectively and accurately and successfully, how in the world are you going to do it when you have employees and associates and partners to deal with, right? You have to be able to be your own great leader before you can be a good leader to someone else. That is just part of how it works, right? So, effective leaders transcend the title of manager or boss. They have found a way to achieve the right combination of charisma, enthusiasm, and self-assurance, probably with a healthy dose of luck and timing. See, there's actually an art, right? There's an art to being a good leader. And then he says something really important here. It's not about the title of manager or boss. He says effective leaders transcend the title of manager or boss. If you think leadership is about having a title, I have news for you, because I can tell you right now, I am the big boss. I am on paper the CEO of my business, and I still sharpen pencils in meetings so that I can keep an eye on what goes on with things. So if you think having a certain title is going to exempt you from certain tasks or certain needs and wants in your business, you're making a big mistake. Having that title has no bearing upon your function as a leader, and you need to absolutely be able to make that distinction. And with that, we are coming to the end of part 1 of our show. I don't want to go too much deeper into this right now. We will do that in part 2, and we're going to look more into what Deep Patel wrote in his article 11 Powerful Traits of Successful Leaders when we come back with part 2. I'm due for a break, and I'm sure you guys can use a break as well. And we will speak in part 2 again.
Catch the fire of creativity. Visit artbyavianne.com. AVIANNE. And now we return to our show with Avianne.
We're back with part 2 of episode 19 of Your Creative Force. Right now, this is Avianne once again, and we are going to go on and discuss more about what Deep Patel is mentioning here in his article, 11 Powerful Traits of Successful Leaders. I'm going to backtrack a little bit and just reread for you what he said before we move on, just so that you can recap this. This is so important, and this is such fantastic content. I really want to share this with you guys. So Deep Patel writes, successful leaders are the power and intellect behind their organizations. They are the visionaries charged with steering their brand around pitfalls. They must know when to seize opportunities and how to rally employees to work hard toward their company's goals. Effective leaders transcend the title of manager or boss. They have found a way to achieve the right combination of charisma, enthusiasm, and self-assurance, probably with a healthy dose of luck and timing. And then he goes on, and this is new. It may seem like some people are just gifted with these skills, but the truth is most leadership traits can be learned and sharpened with time and practice. You can begin building your success by developing these 11 must-have traits of a powerful and successful leader. Now, you have to understand what we mean when we talk about a powerful and successful leader. We are not referring to someone who has power over other people in the sense of just driving them to their wits' end, right? We're not talking about a slave master here. Your employees are not your slaves. You're not supposed to sit there and just boss people around. That's not what we mean when we talk about having power. It's got nothing to do with power. Being a powerful leader has nothing to do with having power over other people. It means that you have power over the kind of leader that you are. First of all, I want to make that very clear to you guys. That's what we're talking about. When we are talking about a successful leader, we're not talking about someone who makes the most money in the company, okay? We're talking about someone with the character and integrity to actually run what needs to be run, to do it well, to make the business functional. And you know what? Sometimes the people who do that are not even the people who have the official title of a boss or a manager or a leader, right, in a business, because it's about the quality of the person's actions that enables the success of the business. It has nothing to do with how much money a person makes, what car they drive, or in which house they live. Successful leaders usually end up being financially successful, but that is not the measure of a successful leader, okay? So you have to understand these differentiations. Power means the power you have over what kind of leader you are, and success means how successfully you can implement leadership to make the company functional and successful. Not about you just being a flashy person with a lot of earthly possessions, right? You can be a horrible person and still be super wealthy. That has nothing to do with being a great leader. And by the way, some of this will even apply to being the leader of your own household. So this can apply across the board. You can really implement this in many different ways in many areas of your life. Okay, I just want to make that clear. Okay, so we want you to really focus. I want you to really focus on the 11 must-have traits that Deep Patel that he's mentioning here. These are fantastic traits. The first one of these 11 traits, we've touched on that in part 1 of our show today, is self-managing, okay? It is hard to manage others effectively, he writes, if you can't manage yourself. Self-managing means being able to prioritize your goals and being responsible for accomplishing those objectives. As an effective leader, you must be able to regulate your time, attention, and emotions while remaining aware of your strengths, weaknesses, and potential sources of bias. Okay? It's a little bit strange, and I can only elaborate on what Deep has written here by saying it to you in this way. I kind of feel like sometimes in my attempt to be a good leader, I kind of fight my natural tendencies a lot. My natural tendencies can be to feel emotionally overwhelmed with things. It can be to, like I said to someone the other day, I just feel sometimes like I have no chill about anything I'm doing in my business. I'm so intense and so serious about it that sometimes it can be just too much for me. And my natural tendencies will be to just just give in to that and just kind of to sit and procrastinate for a while just so I feel I can handle all the intensity of everything, right? But that's not the answer, right? I have to fight that urge to procrastinate sometimes, and I have to just sit down and change to a different task. But I cannot just stop working whenever I feel overwhelmed or whenever I feel like a tough problem needs to be solved in my business, right? I have to face it. I can't just escape, right? So you must know that self-managing is so important, and these things about being responsible for yourself, your own time, your own success is very important. You need to be able to regulate yourself. If you can't show up on time for meetings, if you can't spend a full 8 hours at work working without someone watching over your shoulder, if you can't do the stuff you need to do to run your business when nobody's looking, if you need someone to constantly crack the whip on you, then I have bad news for you. You're going to really struggle to be a leader. Because as a leader, not only are you going to have to do all that for yourself, you're going to have to kind of inspire and motivate and oversee other people doing that. So if you can't even do it yourself, right, how are you going to do it for other people? So that is something to really think about. And then the fact, like what I just mentioned, you might need to fight certain of your natural urges to run away from stuff when it becomes too much, or to just sit in a corner and let someone else deal with things. No, you're going to have to learn to move past your comfort zones and manage yourself and get over yourself and not procrastinate and actually do what needs to be done, even if it means you do it afraid, right? So, number one of these must-have traits of a powerful and successful leader is self-managing. Then we're going to just go on and briefly talk about that, and then we're going to move on to number 2. Exceptional leaders are adept at handling stress and balancing their personal and professional lives. But you must also remember the importance of compassion and be able to respond to people and events in an appropriate way. Remember to maintain self-control and discipline in your actions, though you should avoid becoming overly reserved or inflexible, okay? So there's a balance here as you self-manage, okay? You cannot be too inflexible. You cannot be so rigid with your time and with your priorities that you make no room for the human factor. You have to always, as you self-manage and then learn to manage others, right? You have to always make room for people and show compassion and show some flexibility, because people are people and people are not machines, right? This is why I said to you earlier on, you cannot just sit there and think being a boss means you can crack the whip on everyone. If that's your idea of being a boss, I'm sorry for you, and I'm even more sorry for the people who work for you, because you don't understand what success and power is if you have that kind of attitude. Success and power is, if you handle it well, if you can handle success and power well, it is something that will humble you. It is something that will train you. It is something that will bring a lot of discipline and a lot of compassion into your life. So always remember that, okay? And then Deep goes on by stating that the number 2 trait is acting strategically. And I have to tell you, this is something that also didn't come natural to me. Remember how I said in the beginning, you can actually learn these traits? That's very true. I don't think leaders are born. I think leaders are made. And I'll tell you what, maybe someone can be born with certain personality traits that may make it a little easier for them to lead people in certain situations. But I don't think overall, in the long game of building a business, I don't think leaders are born. I think they're made, okay? Someone who steps up to the plate with the right kind of values, traits, and character, someone who has a great heart for people, but who also is able to distance themselves and not make overly emotional decisions, someone who can look at the facts and be as rational as they are compassionate, someone who can self-manage and have these 11 traits, and if they work at it, they can be a great leader. I was not born a great leader. If you know my history, you would know that I was quite timid in a certain way. And I was very afraid when I was young. I was raised in a situation where I experienced a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety over who I was and what I was going to become in my life. And I had to overcome all that. I put myself, like I said, with other leaders and learned from them and became a leader in my own right. And I'm still becoming. Okay, and this is the good news. You can become, and you will always still be becoming of stepping into the shoes of being a great leader. There's no point of arrival. We can all develop, we can all learn, right? And I think if you have a teachable and a humble attitude in being successful and powerful, you can take this so super far without any limits, right? And that to me personally is part of how I tap into my creative force to become a better leader, is I just simply say to myself, there are no limits to what I'm able to become, but I'm going to have patience with myself. I'm going to self-manage, and I'm going to just go about my journey one step at a time, do it in doable steps. And you know what? As I'm doing that, I'm learning to become a better leader. And I can look back now. You don't always know it when you're in it, but if you look back and you just stick to it, you will see exactly what I'm talking about and what Deep is talking about here. About the whole thing, that you can learn to be a leader and that you will improve in being a leader, right? So, number 2, on that note, acting strategically. A forward-thinking, open-minded approach is necessary for today's leaders. According to a Harvard Business Publishing report, Leading Now, Critical Capabilities for a Complex World, leaders, and he's quoting here, leaders must always be prepared to adjust their strategies to capture emerging opportunities or tackle unexpected challenges. Thinking strategically is an ongoing process that involves assessing your business environment. You can cultivate strategic thinking by, firstly, being curious and genuinely interested in your company and wider business environment. You have to do it by being flexible in your mindset and trying new approaches and ideas, and focusing on the future and thinking about your company's operational conditions. And then lastly, maintaining a positive outlook. Okay? You have to understand that if you are the leader, just like what Deep is describing here, you will drive these things. You will drive the innovation, the wider business environment, the immediate interests of your company, the flexibility of your own mindset, the new approaches and ideas that you can explore, focusing on the future, thinking about your company's operational conditions, maintaining a positive outlook. It really is all on you. So I can say on this point that probably a trait you really need to be seeking after if you want to be a great leader is seek the trait of being teachable. Seek the trait of always wanting to learn and expand your horizons and your mindset. Seek the trait, what he mentioned here first, of self-managing. You have to be able to regulate yourself. You have to be a self-starter. Seek the trait of being a self-starter and a self-motivator and someone who can totally be left on your own and meet the deadlines and do what needs to be done and come up with ideas that are out of the box if need be and drive the vision, drive the success, right? That is something you really need to dig your heels in and learn from other people in the beginning of your journey, and then employ it and employ it and employ it and employ it as much as you can, as fast as you can, as progressively more and more effectively as you can while you are developing yourself as a leader, right? So, number 3, being an effective communicator. Powerful leaders know when to talk and when to listen. They are effective communicators and are able to clearly and succinctly explain to their employees everything from organizational goals to specific tasks. If people don't understand or aren't aware of your expectations, they will fall short. So the more specific you can be, the better. You need to be able to communicate on all levels, one-on-one, to the department and to the entire staff. staff, as well as via phone, email, and social media. Communication is built on a steady flow of verbal and non-verbal exchanges of ideas and information. So work on being approachable and involving people from different levels. This is a tough one, and I can tell you as leaders, we tend to do one of two things, okay? We tend to over-communicate or under-communicate. I feel like I do a bit of both. I feel there are certain things I'm still under-communicating about. I feel like I can be more clear about my teacher's training, and I can be more clear about my expectations from my teachers, right? I can be more clear about those things. But then I feel like sometimes I over-communicate, and I get this little red light that goes on in my mind. Oh my gosh, you are over-communicating. You are totally now reaching a point of actually micromanaging this person because you're being so detailed and so much. You're like a fire hydrant pouring water upon this poor person, and they have no idea where to even begin to understand what you are talking about, right? Because it's too much. So this thing about being succinct and knowing when to speak and when to listen, giving a voice to people, and really making yourself available and accessible to listening to and communicating with people on all levels of your organization, right? That is what he's talking about here. Then number 4, being accountable and responsible. Successful managers know how to use power and authority appropriately without overwhelming or overpowering employees. Effective leaders hold themselves accountable and take responsibility for their own mistakes, and they expect others to do the same. They can work within established procedures and be productive and efficient in their decisions. They appreciate the importance of supporting and encouraging individuality while also understanding organizational structures and the need to follow rules and policies. They are able to balance different perspectives while taking appropriate action. Okay, I can tell you in this regard, my experience in my business, my art-based business, my academy, I work with interesting personalities, right? Because I work with artists for the most part. And artists aren't typically people who do very well in superstructured environments. So for me, what has become very important in being accountable and responsible and helping others to be accountable and responsible is to actually take charge of what it is I want my teachers and my associates to accomplish with me or through me or alongside me in my business, and then be clear about that, right? Number 3, being an effective communicator as much as I can. And then in that, give them the freedom to bring their own personalities and bring their own input and their own take on the matter to the table. It works well for me because my environment is extremely creative and people feel like they have good structure, but they're also free to be themselves and move around within that structure. It's almost like I'm giving them boundaries, but within those boundaries, they can be themselves. So they don't freak out. They don't feel like they can't deal with it or can't handle it, or like they have to be a completely different person than what they naturally are, right? And sometimes we test ideas. Like I had a teacher teach a specific class, and we found out after about 3 to 4 weeks that this class was really not a good fit for this teacher. And so we just backtracked the teacher slowly out of that class. I took the class over, and now I'm handing that class over to a third teacher again who is a better fit, right? So you have to be able to have that kind of responsibility and accountability and the foresight to see these things in time, right? Balance different perspectives while taking appropriate action. It all boils down to you. The buck stops with you. That's why being accountable and responsible is so important, right? Then, number 5, setting clear goals and persisting in achieving them. Here is a boiled down version for acquiring charisma. Deep writes, set clear goals and be determined and purposeful in achieving them. Back it all up with unshakable self-confidence. If you radiate enthusiasm and are truly excited about what you're doing, people will be naturally drawn to you. Remember that writing your goals down is key to the success of both you and your company. But accomplishing those goals takes time. If you give up, so will everyone around you. To be a successful leader, you must be willing to keep going when others are tempted to throw in the towel. I can tell you this thing about self-confidence. Sometimes you're going to have to fake it. A little bit. I mean, you can't fake it in the sense of you're not being honest with your employees about where you're taking the company, right? You can't fake it in the sense of just making a bad thing looking great, like we say in the States, putting lipstick on a pig, right? That's not what we mean here. But when you are having to exude confidence, sometimes you're going to do it in the light of taking a risk on a project or on a client. Sometimes you're going to have to show confidence in a bad economy when everyone else is afraid of losing their jobs. You're going to be the one that gives people confidence. No, we're going to pull the company through. We may restructure a bit, but we're going to get through this. And you're going to have to be the optimist. You're going to have to be the realist while you are being the optimist. And that is tricky sometimes. So you need to be aware of that and just don't be the one shaking in your boots right in everyone's face, because if you are afraid, these people are going to freak out. You have to show confidence. You have to show clear goals, set clear goals, and persist in achieving them, even if you feel a little uncertain. It's normal to feel uncertain, so don't let that freak you out, right? And then number 6, having a vision for the future. Exceptional leaders have the ability to look into their company's future and make clear, concrete goals that will benefit their organization. They are confident and optimistic, inspiring enthusiasm in those around them, like we kind of pointed to in number 5, setting clear goals and persisting in achieving them, right? Being a visionary is about managing change while striking a balance between stability and growth. You must incorporate new approaches without getting distracted from the main goals. This is very important, right? For me as a creative person, there's so many different ways I can approach my business, so many different things I can do in my business, but I have to be careful because I can literally make 20 different things in 20 different days, right? But I have to make the things that I can sell. I can't just make whatever I want. It's different maybe for an artist who can just do whatever they want. But for me, I have to make things that sell. I have to create courses I can sell. I can't just do whatever whim is taking me, right? I have to have a very specific vision, not just for what I'm selling or what I'm creating in the moment, but for where I'm taking this business in the future. And we've got some great, exciting stuff going on with that right now, just so you know. Okay, so incorporate new approaches, but don't get distracted from your main goals. Being a visionary means understanding that continuous change is occurring all around you, so that what worked in the past may not always work now. Practice being adaptable and agile as you implement new strategies and allow your business model to evolve over time. Patience, right? And that having been quite a mouthful, we're at number 6 of the 11 traits of powerful and successful leaders. And we're going to end part 2 of our show here, and then we will come back and we will end with part 3 of our show.
Talent is a flame. Genius is a fire. And now we return to our show with your host, Avianne.
And we are back with part 3 of our show today, episode 19 of Your Creative Force. Our theme today is successful leaders, and we are looking at an article that we are assessing and elaborating upon, written by Deep Patel, a Forbes contributor, and the article is titled 11 Powerful Traits of Successful Leaders, and we are at number 7, managing complexity. Leaders must be problem solvers, yes, who can make decisions under rapidly shifting circumstances. Learning to lead in a complex environment is a vital skill for any leader. Even before any definitive information is available, effective leaders must assess a situation's complexity and choose appropriate courses of action. And right here, I want to add the fact that successful leaders know how to access their intuition. You develop a sixth sense in business. If you've been at it for a while, the longer you're at it, the more you develop this. If you really care about being a great leader, right? You're going to develop some intuitive knowledge, like you can read people, you can read a situation, right? Like an intuitive way of just understanding what to do next. I am starting to tap into that more and more, and I have to tell you, I am quite amazed at the power of my intuition sometimes. According to a Harvard Business Publishing report, Deep writes, that means being able to scan the environment in search of subtle trends and indicators of disruptive change and establish practices that allow your organization to respond swiftly. Being able to move quickly on new ideas while digging in your heels with things that really work for your business, those are key. You cannot stagnate in today's business environment, because if you stagnate, you will become irrelevant very quickly. Today's environment is very organic and changes very rapidly, and we need to be able to move with that, right? As a business leader. Number 8, fostering creativity and innovation. Leaders must have the courage to risk experimentation and encourage creativity. Doing this will foster the innovation that will steer your organization to new destinations and around the twists and turns of a changing business landscape. The key is to always be persistent in pursuing your goals and open-minded and flexible in how you get there. Encourage the people around you to spend at least 15% of their time exploring new ideas through brainstorming and prototyping. This is something I'm absolutely doing in my organization now more than ever. I am actually looking and taking a part of my art academy online because I just figured that some of that would be a smarter business decision for my business long term, right? So that's what I'm doing. Then moving on. Number 9, team building and promoting teamwork. Successful leadership is built on the people around you. Team building is essential to leading a diverse and unique group of people with distinct personalities, motivations, and skills. Strong teams and teamwork are key to achieving many of the things on this list, such as fostering innovation, effective communication, and achieving your organization's goals. If you recruit and develop the right team, you will be creating an unstoppable force that will drive your organization's success. Okay? And I just want to stop here quickly and mention something. You have to make sure that you build a good team. I have seen businesses absolutely rise and fall with not building a good team. But not having a great team reflects on the leadership. If you don't have a great team, that is not the fault of your team. That is on you as the leader, right? The buck stops with you. Then we're going to move on to number 10, creating lasting relationships. And just before I read what Deep was saying about this, I want you to realize something. You want to be a leader, you're going to deal with people. It comes with the territory. So be prepared. You cannot ignore the fact that you have to have people skills and learn to deal very well with people if you want to be a successful leader, right? Now, number 10, creating lasting relationships. Compelling leaders to do more than just inspire others to follow them. They know how to motivate their employees to strive wholeheartedly for their company's goals. Employees who feel valued and appreciated, who feel like what they do makes a difference, will feel invigorated to push harder to achieve success for their company. Outstanding leaders also understand that they need to be effective at networking, not just to advance their own careers, but for the benefit of their organization. By creating a vast and varied network of people, leaders establish impactful relationships with customers, clients, partners, and even competitors. I think that kind of speaks for itself, right? Number 11, last but not least, learning agility. Truly great leaders know that the strength of their leadership is built on their ability to adapt to suddenly changing circumstances and to know how and when to seize on opportunities amid a changing landscape. Having an insatiable curiosity will fuel your desire to constantly learn and grow. Learning agility hinges on developing critical thinking skills, being accepting of uncertainty, having social and emotional intelligence, and always having the desire and determination to push forward. We've touched on this in previous episodes. And I want you to understand something. Critical thinking skills, unfortunately, in most universities, they're not teaching that anymore. You are going to have to learn it. I was fortunate because critical thinking skills were actually part of a subject called logical philosophy when I was at university, and I actually was made to take that subject. And I can tell you right now, as far as my university education goes, that's probably the part of my education I use the most, believe it or not, is the critical thinking skills. Go look it up, go research it. That is absolutely invaluable to you. And that is it as far as this article of Deep Patel goes. The article again is 11 Powerful Traits of Successful Leaders. Deep Patel is a serial entrepreneur, marketing, and the author of A Paper Boy's Fable, The 11 Principles of Success. This book was dubbed the #1 best business book in 2016 by Success Magazine. Okay, so we're going to end our show today with today's quote. And today's quote of the day is by Dwight D. Eisenhower, the very famous general and American statesman. The supreme quality for leadership is unquestionably integrity. Without it, no real success is possible, no matter whether it is on a section gang, a football field, in an army, or in an office. And with that, I'm going to love and leave you. This is Avianne signing out for Your Creative Force episode 19, Successful Leaders. Until next time.
Talent is a flame. Genius a fire. Visit us at artbyavian.com. Tune in next time as we explore your creative force. Thank you for listening.